have a show of hands if anyone wants to speak. The topic of the session is on the economy. If you really want to talk about something from the previous session, if you can link it to the economy, you can probably let it in. But we're focusing mostly on the economy. So who has a question? If not, I have others. We can sort of get things up that way. Does anyone have a? Nobody? Oh, yeah, if you want to. Also, we're looking at, I mean, it's quite broad, but yeah, the economic situation in Europe today is not great, as people may have noticed. So solutions to that and investment, encouraging investment is particularly the focus. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Lena. I'm working in Brussels, so I'm not a student anymore, but I must say that it's quite hard, even for me, to be a cross-border worker. I'm naturally from Germany. So I think one of the main things that the EU institutions should maybe ensure is that cross-border workers or their life is more facilitated, because actually national bureaucracies or national authorities have a million reasons why they don't accept my status. It's the health insurance, it's the car insurance, it's tax authorities, everything related to it. And I know that some of you already addressed this issue of that the EU has to ensure that cross-border workers actually having a good life and not being threatened by all of the authorities. And I would like to know which concrete proposals you have, because I can imagine that for you living in that Brussels bubble, it's quite hard to know the everyday life of cross-border workers and the problems they face. Thank you.
That's an excellent question from Lena. I know I'm actually a cross-border worker myself, and so a lot of those issues of red tape you mentioned, tax issues, health insurance issues, are national competencies, of course, not EU competencies. Shall I go around the panel? Does everyone want to start? Michael Thurber, do you want to begin?
Yeah, we have that very often. Also, if you live close to a border region, I live close to the French border in southwest Germany, and people who are living there, for instance, in Offenburg, and they work in France, in Alsace, they complain. And as a member of parliament, I had one petition once. There was a patchwork family that was a German husband and a French wife, and they were married before and they had children, and there were a lot of problems with the social security and with the benefits by the countries. But if you really want to solve that, you have to harmonize the social legislation and all the tax rulings and things like that. And from that point of view, that is the huge question: do we really want to have a full harmonization? To make it clear, the European Parliament is pushing the Commission and the Member States to make it more easy for cross-border workers, because we have realized that that is a problem. For instance, we would like to see as a European Parliament that pension schemes can be taken from one country to another, and I think the European Union has to improve this framework.
I don't know if it's something else to be, but for you, cross-border means that you are living in a country and working in another country.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in Brussels, where are you going? In Netherlands?
No, I'm working in Brussels and I'm living close to the Dutch border, but in Germany.
Yeah.
So in Brussels, 3 countries.
You have a long way to come to work. Move in Brussels. This is the best solution. It's not such a very nice town, but it's okay. So I think that this is national level subsidiarity, because at the EU level maybe we can make some recommendation. The only thing that could be done is to make a uniform, I don't know, application of taxes, of not the level of taxes, but how to apply the taxes and how many, the number of taxes and so on, but not more. And also social security, the same thing. But depends, in my opinion, also of the people, of the administration, to apply the normal rules. This is also my opinion. Yeah. So maybe you met some people that are not so happy to do their job.
So I'm also very much in favor of making the life easier for those who are working in Brussels but are not citizens of Belgium. European harmonization, we are far away from this, but to have at least possibilities to carry on your pension funds, or also to have better health protection guaranteed. So but there are a lot of detailed issues, and Mr. Theurer is completely right that as often as we try to improve, we fail. We manage to fail each time a little bit better, but we are far away from being perfect. But I think a little bit in the context of what my colleague Marinescu said, you decide how you live and how you work, and you have reasons for this situation. Other people suffer from other problems, not only cross-border. People have specific problems, and we will never ever be able to create tailor-made solutions.
Maybe you are an assistant to MEP?
No, I'm not. I'm working for a private sector, and that makes it even more complicated.
Yes, this is true.
Private sector, you may have heard of it.
Yes.
I'm going to put a question out. Do we have anyone from Spain here? Okay. Gentlemen, would you care to stand up? What's your name? Okay, what's the unemployment rate for a man in your age?
I come from the Canary Island. I can say that youth unemployment there is 48%.
Okay. Which island did you say?
Canary Island.
Okay.
Which one?
Tenerife.
Okay, that's on my house. Okay, let me take another example, which is actually the number that you just mentioned is actually common for all of Spain, more or less, right? You have some peaks and valleys. But if you, for example, live in a town called Barcelona, which I actually hope that you would be from, because you are very stylish, but
some people about Atlantic Spain.
That's a separate, that's another panel. So,
you know, MVPs always want to talk about what they know and what they want to talk about. But anyway, in brief, if you take the train for 2 hours from Catalonia, you end up in Languedoc-Roussillon. The chance of getting, if the chances for someone in your age to get a job in Catalonia is 1 in 2, that you will at least double your chances if you cross the border 2 hours. They don't. I'll give you 2 hypotheses. 1, people, youngsters like you in Spain, are lazy and stupid and like living with their moms for too long. Or number 2, there's something stopping you. It might be this. Nation. It could be like, okay, what's your barriers? It could be that you have okay, so okay, but the issues in the air, or healthcare professionals, we're really ruining my example by not being a Catalan midwife. Okay, I just want to make that very clear. But anyway, your qualification will be accepted. So, in short. Oh, well, there could be a third hypothesis, which is that there's a combination of both. You're both lazy and the member states are lazy as well. But I'll stop there and just basically say there is a problem and people are not stupid.
Do we have more questions from the audience? Hands? Otherwise, maybe let's start. So to sort of bring this back to the question of investment, I'm going to add just maybe another question from Debating Europe, which was sent in. This one was sent in from Joshua. And I think maybe hopefully it will kind of open up some discussion on the floor. He says the theory behind austerity is that by cutting expenses and regulation, countries can become more attractive to foreign direct investment because they have lower salaries, lower social expenses, more privatization, etc. However, what has happened, I can see you're chomping at the bit to answer.
This is from you.
Well, he goes on, he says, what has happened in reality is that unemployment has gone up to record levels and demand and consumption have gone down without attracting a major increase in investment or significant productivity gains. Is it time to admit that the current policy is not making Europe a more attractive place to invest? Who wants to start with that one? No, Rebecca, do you want to?
Let the Germans.
So I'm a member of the European Parliament, so I'm not the member representing only German interests, but I take also the chance. So we tried today in the European Parliament to have a debate on Greece. Because we felt in our group meeting very alerted by recent news on Greece around Europe. Everybody is talking about Brexit. Some are talking about the Brexident. For me, it sounds even worse. So like sleepwalkers, Europeans are following maybe a major catastrophe for Europe and are not understanding it. The European Parliament by majority today refused a debate, knowing that next week there will be the unofficial summit of the informal meeting of the Eurozone finance ministers to evaluate the review of the Greek program. All what we hear is that more and more people are supporting the idea that a Brexit will not harm Europe. More and more people are saying it will even be a benefit, a favor for Europe and for the Greeks. I doubt this a lot. My evaluation is that for several reasons, and I think the most important thing right now would not be to talk about who is guilty for the situation we are in together with the Greeks, but my main idea would be to talk about what went wrong and how can we fix this situation, because I fear that a Brexit cannot be evaluated like some do it, so it will cost for one European citizen 1,000 euros. So this was one title in a German newspaper. Makes you feel it's not that expensive. Yeah, it's a bit expensive for some, but it's not that expensive. Yeah, but all those evaluations of the possible costs of a Brexit are ignoring what's really going to happen. We will have a country in the European Union which looks then more and more like a failed state, with a real, huge humanitarian crisis, a European member state not able to pay what they have to pay to make their people survive. We will have, I think, impact on the evaluation of the stability of the European Union. We will maybe have also impact on other countries in the European Union. And I think it will not weaken Podemos or Cinque Stelle or others, like some count. So we will have a tremendous political impact, and we should stop it. And we should stop it by an honest evaluation about what went wrong with the program for Greece and also other programs, and by deciding what kind of measures we need to stop it and what kind of measures are necessary. And there we are back in our issue. What investment a European has to do to revitalize a Greek economy. Also in other countries it will be obviously a same need for discussion.
Yes, I agree. Exit of Greece will be a big problem for Europe. And if we connect this with what possible, probably Putin discussed with Tsipras, it will be a a huge problem, because I think that is connected also with Russia. But in the same time, it's an example of the question, yeah, austerity. I don't know. I don't want to start a discussion. I will not say austerity. I would say better spending, because at the end, member states, countries, governments, politicians, they spend more than they got. Because of populism also. Because they needed some populism, even if they were not, they were traditional parties, to get votes. So they spent more than they got. They had. So that's the reason of a lot of things in Europe. It's very simple. Greece spent a lot. Now, I'm asking myself, why the banks, they loans and loans and loans, knowing that they will not be able to pay back? Yeah, so we have to ask also the banks. Yeah, that's the real situation. Yes, there are measures. In some countries were successful. In small countries, like in Baltic states, measures, heavy measures for the people. In some countries, there are not taken measures that they needed, like France, for example, that they have a system of civil servants, huge, an administration, it's a huge administration, but they pay salaries again and again, and if they are doing something to make a reform, they will say this is austerity. No, it's reality, it's going back to reality. So this is in my opinion, the real situation, because, you know, we are speaking only about cutting salaries. Where from? Public sector. What about the private sector? Because private sector is paying taxes to keep alive also the public sector. So first, we have to take care of the private sector to have some money in the national budget.
Yeah, Marion just mentioned some aspects. I would like to answer the question, do we need another economic policy in the European Union? Yes, we do. We have two schools. One school is claiming that we need a deficit spending policy. I don't believe that. I don't believe that public finance can only be in a deficit. It must be balanced. That is my opinion. We need a financial sustainability, because in the long run, we are not able to spend more than we earn. And I don't believe that with deficit spending, we will get back on a growth path. But we have another school, that is the school of fiscal discipline. And I don't believe that fiscal discipline alone will get us back on a growth path. And the tragedy in the current discussion is that it is focused too much on the currency issue. The euro is neither the solution nor the problem. It's a currency. There are countries in the euro in crisis, and there are countries out of the euro in crisis. We have countries like Bulgaria or Hungary, they devaluated, they are not in the euro, but they are in economic turmoil and problems as well. So I argue that we should go to the real reasons of the crisis. And they are related to the competitiveness, and they are related to the economic model. And the European Union is a continent with a decreasing and aging population, and the demand is too low. And one reason for that is that almost everybody has a refrigerator. Many people already have a car. Okay, if people could earn more, they would spend more. That's one thing. But to be honest, I really think that we have to ask ourselves, where shall be the growth potential of this continent compared to other areas of the world? And if we look at the European Union at the moment, we have 7% of the world population, 25% of the world gross domestic product, but we provide 50% of all the social benefits which are paid in the world. And if we look at that, it is a very easy example. If an engineer or a technician of a Belgian firm travels to China, that costs the enterprise here in Belgium 1,000 euros per day. These are the expenses that have to be earned. The Chinese client who is employing that technician or engineer has to pay 1,000 euros. That is the income of a 4-head family in China if they are working in a factory. So the incentive, for instance, for China or Malaysia or Indonesia to compete this one-day income or cost expense of a Belgian technician or engineer is huge. And we can only earn an income which is above the world average if we offer something which is scarce in the world, which is needed. And now we are in the core question of the European Union. If we do not develop products which are demanded by somebody and for which a price is paid worldwide, which is above the average, we will not be able to defend our wealth. And therefore, I think we should have a discussion in the European Union how we can get back in a leadership position with technology and innovation. That's all about that. And I'm really disappointed that we are not discussing about these. These are the real challenges we have to face.
That's also a nice link, maybe the sort of thread to the first session, which is about how's Europe going to react to globalization and cope with the challenges from that. I'm guessing that I'm probably of the same generation as most people in this room. And so we're talking up here about sort of big issues, but they're issues which really are going to affect our future. So you must have questions and comments. That must have sort of stirred up some questions. Anyone else? Oh yes, of course. If you think of it, hold it and think it out, and then we'll start here, and then we can go to the floor.
I will just very briefly hop in on a few of the things that have been said, because I think you're actually all right in one sense. 25% of all GDP coming from Europe, yes. Here's a scary thought. In 50 years, 1/5, the number will be half. When I was dealing with trade agreements, the Chinese used to say, you will look twice as pompous in 15 years from now. And which is true. And the key factor is actually not so much competitiveness. It's actually productivity, which are two different things. Yeah. We don't actually compete thanks to salary, as you're pointing out. But the problem is that we are not actually transitioning into new type of works. We don't all work for Google. We are not all bioengineers. And in the same tempo as the rest of the world is catching up. It's not because the rest of the world is cheating. If you make an assumption that my parents are just as smart as your parents, basically, there are more Asians out there, there are more Americans out there, and there were of us. So in short, the rest of the world will catch up, and it's an inevitable effect of the fact that, hey, everyone is created alike. If you dispute that, we can have that discussion later. But in short, what we've seen now is that we have created an export-led model. And if you look at the Germany's economy, half the GDP is coming from exports. Even France has 27% of the GDP coming from exports. China, 27%. You blame Chinese, well, not you specifically, but a lot of people claim that Chinese export too much. Well, I'll tell you the truth. We've been doing this trick for 100 years. Good luck. We are literally throwing stones in glass houses. And the problem is that in terms of keeping the salaries work, which is exactly what Germany did in the 90s, never worked. What we have now is that we are underinvesting the economy. German economy, 1% is FDI, foreign direct investment, 1%. France, 0. Greece is in a free fall. People don't invest in a country because the salaries are low. And I can show you a million examples of this. If they did, they would leave China and go to Laos and Vietnam. There's a completely different reason based on supply chains and actually productivity. Basically, it's not that much how much a worker costs. It's actually a question about how much revenue that person can generate to a company. And we have a huge problem. We invest less in R&D than Japan. Our economy is 3 times larger. And they still file more patents than all of Europe put together. A Brazilian car worker, in terms of productivity, is more productive than a Spanish car worker. So it has nothing to do with salaries. If a Brazilian, which is an extremely complex economy, by the way, and extremely underperforming, but still, if he works 1 hour, or she, by the way, that person will generate more in revenue than a Spanish car worker. And that's a huge problem. Now what we are facing now in Greece is basically that you have an investment environment which is not very good. Exactly as you were saying, the market needs to deregulate. But the problem I see, and here's the age factor, somebody has to pay the price. If you have an overregulated economy with protected professions, a lot of state employees, there has to be a shock therapy. The second you start to deregulate, to reinvigorate the economy so that the investments come in, there will be a taxi driver who actually once paid 100,000 euros for his taxi medallion. He's relying on his pension to be able to sell the medallion because taxi is a licensed profession, even pharmacists, etc. If you open that up, he will lose his pension. I think Mr. Marinescu will be in the best position to explain what the shock therapy on the economy, where some people actually suddenly lose all their savings because your economy went through the exact same thing. It's an intergenerational issue. If you're going to save the future generation of Greeks, somebody has to pay the price. And currently, the people who voted, I am not going to be that guinea pig. Okay? And in a sense, you're right. It's not about the currency, but it was also a currency that was never deemed to work. When Sweden had this election with the euro, I went on in media and said that actually I wish it could work, but I'm not sure it will. And let me be very clear that I'm not very happy by the fact to be able to say told you so. It doesn't make me any happy as a European.
I think we may have time for one last round of questions from the floor. Do we have you been thinking of your, yeah, there's one at the back. And one at the front, yes, well, let's start there.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Aspa, I'm Greek, so it's a quite relevant discussion for me. I find the topic of Brexit very interesting, and I think it's very, very complicated to actually have an opinion on it. However, I struggle to find how Europe right now is really having a humanitarian role in Greece, and I wonder how worse things can be. So I wonder whether Brexit would actually be detrimental for Greece or for the rest of Europe. That's a question to you. And also, even though I'm not an expert in economics, I believe that austerity, from a very basic logic view, is really against spending. People who don't have money cannot buy things, cannot make the economy function. And that is something that is very visible in Greece. Everything is for free right now. Theaters, everything is for free. Otherwise, there is nothing else to do. So what is your opinion on austerity? First question. And second question, where is Brexit going to be more detrimental, on Greece, domestically, or on the rest of Europe?
Before we take more questions, I'm going to, Michael Thurr has to leave, so I'm just going to ask him to just quickly answer that, and then we can go back to some more questions.
It's a huge question. I will try to answer it quickly. I'm in deep sorrow. I'm in deep sorrow for the people in Greece, because if there will be a Brexit, or especially a Brexit that nobody wants, but it happens, that will really bring a humanitarian catastrophe. If you look at the economic discussion, with a haircut some years ago, the lendings, the bonds were changed from Greek law, legislation law, to British law now. And therefore 80% of the public debt of Greece has already collective action clauses. And that means that there are a huge number of economists that say, okay, there will be an insolvency of the state. There are other insolvencies in the world, like Argentina and other countries. We can manage that. But that is only the economic side. What will happen to the people? I don't know exactly. And I would just share one experience with you I made during the last 5 years in the European Parliament. First of all, in the Committee of Regional Development, we had these really dangerous fires in Greece. And our Greek colleagues stood up and called for money, funding, to fight the fires in Greece. And after 1 hour discussion, that was my second session as a new elected member of parliament, I stood up and said, as a mayor, I know that fires are not fought with money, but with fire brigades. And what's about volunteers doing fire brigades? Because in Germany, 80% of all fire brigades are volunteers. I didn't get an answer by the Commission. My Greek colleagues were very silent. And only one Austrian colleague stood up and said, yes, he proposed that 2 years ago. The European Union funded fire engines for volunteers, and in the end they had to pay the toll to get to the fire on their own, because that was not funded by the communities and by the state, because of a huge attack by trade unions who argued that volunteer fire brigades are killing professional fire brigade jobs. And if I look at that, I have to admit that even a rich country like Germany is not able to provide a professional fire protection with professionally paid fire brigadiers, and we do it to 80% with volunteers. And the second you just mentioned, with a free entry in theaters. I had that is probably my taxi, I have to leave now. I have to, as a professional mayor, I had to consolidate the public finance of my community because we were at the limit. And we really started to privatize public utilities. And how did we? We were not only looking for private investors, but we also convinced citizens to take responsibility. So I really think if there are public utilities and public offers, then we should organize it in a way that people pay a price for that. So in the long run, I think it is not possible to spend more money than you earn. And now you are not convinced how we can overcome the poverty. I think if there are no people standing up in the morning, inventing products which we can produce and sell to somebody, or services like you just mentioned, then we will not get the Greek economy out of it. But I know that there are a lot of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs who struggle very hard in Greece, and they don't have the framework they need that they can be successful. And I have, as a budgetary control committee chairperson, I have concrete projects which are not done, although the funding was provided. And if you look at it, I just phoned with Horst Reichenbach. We have, for instance, more than 10 million euros for capacity building, but this money is not taken. And I cannot understand why the Greek government is not taking that money. Or if you look at the roads, at the motorways, They are now prepared. The preparation took 2 or 3 years. Now the new government is unbundling all the whole package. And if you will change this arrangement, it will take another 2 years of planning, and there will be no construction work, and there are no people employed for that construction. So I would really recommend that the projects in Greece are now implemented. And if you look into some countries with the absorption rate, Greece for years, even before the crisis, I was a rapporteur of the parliament on the absorption rates. There was money, and it was not absorbed. There were funds, and they were not absorbed, and it was not the co-financing rate. I can prove that, and that was passed by the parliament. And from that point, I really argue, please look at best governance. For instance, Poland did very well. Estonia did very well. Some Baltic states did very well. And I can only hope that people in Greece stand up and look how other countries solve the problems, because there are many instruments and there's a lot of funding and help which should be taken into implementation.
I'm going to get some more answers to your question, but I think there was a lady at the back. If we just take 2 more questions, maybe. Was there someone back? Yes.
Hello, my name is Camille. I would like to talk about something that might concern us more in the long term than just the crisis that we are living actually. About last summer, when was that treaty that was leaked, the transatlantic treaty? I do not have a lot of economical background, but it seemed to me that it was preoccupying and that it could change a lot of things on the long term. And my question is not whether or not this text is going to be enacted now, but rather what is the position of the European Union about that text?
Okay, do we have and one more? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Max. My question also goes a bit into the direction of TTIP, and it's a pity actually that the gentleman from Merlot's just left, because my direction goes into that point that I more and more feel that the Commission, as well as the parties in favor of TTIP, try to sell TTIP as something which is the possibility to rescue the European economy. And I cannot really see how a free trade agreement on a level where standards are already quite low can actually rescue the whole European economy. And then in the end, wouldn't it be wiser to actually focus or to reshift the communication about TTIP in a way and focus on the thing which it really is? It's about finding common standards instead of rescuing the European economy. That's my first question. And my second would be probably to Mr. Makiyama about how he would assess the Juncker investment plan, actually, like that, how from 8 billion euros, 320 can be born.
Okay, we have 15 minutes. I don't know if we're going to cover all of that. That's Brexit, TTIP, and the Juncker investment plan. I'm going to say yes. If you each have 5 minutes, and we'll start with Mr. Marinescu. If you can, you don't have to answer all of them, but you can choose.
I shall try. 5 minutes. Grace. I think it will be worse, and Europe will have also problems. Will not be any more Europe that we know today. It will be a different Europe, for sure. So, and then I can tell you, I'm connected with Russia, with a country that is in the Council, in the European Council, and could veto some decisions. It would be a very difficult political problem. Because that means that we shall go, it will be taken the other way, intergovernmental solution, and this is not the future of Europe. So I hope that will not happen, but unfortunately, your government is going in this direction. That's it. And your government was elected by the people. Europe is trying to help as much as it can, because it cannot say we cut all the debt, everything. Now you start from the very beginning. Anyway, you will have problems even in this situation, because it's a problem of economy. Yeah, economy. The economy of Greece is not helping the country. That's it. That's the situation. TTIP. Yeah, TTIP could help a lot, like any other trade agreement. Why the, I don't know, South Korean trade agreement to be better than USA agreement? Because we are trying to have, we concluded South Korean agreement, I don't know, 2 years ago, I think. So it will help a lot the economy, but there will be problems, because Americans they want to keep some, let's say, rules, for example, repairs of ships only in United States and so on. But it will help. Juncker plan, it's very simple. It's working right now. Juncker plan they didn't invent hot water. Yeah, it's already existing. Take Innofin, which is an investment plan, investment fund for innovation, which is existing right now in the budget of 2014-2020. So it will be a guarantee of 25 billion, and this, we hope, they hope that will attract more than 300 billions, based on the fact, this is very strange, that there is a lot of money in the banks, and they are not using it. Yeah, it's unemployment, the economy is not working, but there is a lot of money in the banks. So to use this money, we need this guarantee fund. Of course, we can speak a lot about Juncker plan, but
so I will start with the Juncker plan, because in principle, I'm very much in favor of the idea to create, via public invest, better economic development, especially in the countries of crisis. Juncker plan comes late. We discussed the need for investment since we started the discussion on the first Greek program, because many economists from all over the world warned the European Union the way you fix the program for Greece can never work, because the targets you are giving to Greece in the context of the programs, those targets will maybe deliver the figures for a healthy public budget, but it will kill in the same time all development of Greek economy. And those who want the European Union and the IMF and everybody else have been right. What we see right now in Greece, and even the election, the support, the big success for Tsipras had been predicted from all those who want us the European Union to fix the wrong frame in the Greek programs. So Juncker plan should have been decided earlier. Would need more money, and would need, and this is still missing also in Greece now, would need in the countries and all over the European Union an idea in which direction we want, by which investment we want to push what we have already, because some of the conditions have been created. So Europe is not as awful as sometimes we are discussing about Europe. We have some successes in research and development, for example, in efficiency technologies, in renewables. We have huge field where we can make progress if we decide to have more efficient cars, yeah, to have a different systems of mobility. We have knowledges. We could do something out of it for the future and for sustainable development, not only for environment, but also for the economy. But this is missing. So we have a Juncker plan, which comes too late for Greece right now, but it's needed in Greece, especially like in the other countries of crisis. We have a Juncker plan, which is, I think, far away from being sufficient. And we have a lack of good ideas of future development of our economy. And there are other areas I can't cover right now. So Juncker plan, Brexit. So don't believe that a Brexit would ease the situation for Greek citizens. So I'm really campaigning against Brexit because I fear for Greek citizens. I know the situation, the humanitarian situation. I know the health system misery since long. And I can only warn those people, also among the Syriza people, who pretend that a Brexit would create a better situation for Greece. It will be awful for Greece, and it will be a real burden for European solidarity and European cooperation also outside of Greece. The third issue was TTIP. Okay, so promises are like that. Reality of a free trade agreement, I think, it's a lot about the new power of such a big free market, United States and Europe, and then together with Canada, who could compete, who could really compete. This would be a zone where you fix the standards for the rest of the world, if you want. I doubt this idea because I'm not convinced that right now in TTIP people will fix the standards we would need. For example, I studied some papers which have been done by trade unions in Germany, in Austria, and other countries. They fear that the real hype for better economic development and better employment situation is a fake. It's again more about dumping of salaries and little wages, little income, than about anything else. And what it means for environment, what it means for social standards, so the time is not long enough to discuss it now. For me, it would be better if we would stop the negotiations and restart a discussion with other countries in the world on our targets, for example, for social standards, on our targets for consumer protection, etc. And then we can also open the markets.
Quickly on Greece. Central banking is not really about dogmas, deficit spending, fiscal discipline. The two economists that our esteemed colleague talked about earlier, Hayek and I spoke the other guy is Keynes, they spoke each other regularly. They studied the previous economic crisis, tried to figure out model to solve the current one that they were living in. But they revised this theory many times. I don't think you fix Greece with cute analogies about your personal income that you cannot spend more than you earn. I'm not saying either of them are right. I don't belong to any school, I might add. have you heard about housing mortgages and credit cards for credit? There are sometimes times they are right to use one instrument, there are sometimes they're wrong. Central banking is not a dogma, it's not a religion, it's not a profession for lawyers. It's a craft, like all policy. So I'll stop at that, and then you can try to figure out where I stand on the Brexit. But one thing I try to frame it slightly differently. Everybody talks about the costs for Europe and European cooperation. Talk about the costs for future Greeks, and whether that this actually Brexit will lead to further reform that are absolutely necessary. There are not enough money in the Juncker bank or anywhere else to save Greece. Only the Greeks can save themselves by reforming the economy and to change the entire economic model. And for that, we are talking about basically a culture shock that is similar to what Eastern Europe went through once upon a time, hence my analogy. And also, in terms of the Juncker fund, it's, what can I say? You know, it's like saying, okay, nobody wants to invest in my country, so I'm going to use tax money. Isn't it just an artificial breathing? I'm just asking myself, and I'm also a little bit curious about R&D, and one of the countries who spend the least amount on public funding on R&D is the United States. They fund the schools and they let the rest work out itself. You know what? That's the reason why the system works. And if I look at, for example, many of the investments we've done on the public level on R&D, many of that has gone to actually investment that hasn't actually paid off. One of them, unfortunately, is green technology. You're investing in a product that will actually may or may not pay off in 25 years horizon, and this company may have only 5 years left to live. You know, it's an equation that actually doesn't fit. There's actually one solution to how you can find investment and R&D spending so that it matches the market condition. It is the market itself. Let the competition work out itself, and you will allocate the means more efficiently. And Ronald Reagan, which is not a hero of mine, by the way, said once that, you know, there's the most scariest word in the vocabulary is, I am from the federal government and I'm here to help. Have you heard that quote? Which is, you know, trust the private sector. And I have the Brussels version of that. I come from the European Commission and I don't have a clue what I'm doing here. On to the question about TTIP. I want to be very clear from the beginning and to say that my employer and myself belong to one of the organizations actually we were the first organization to propose a transatlantic free trade agreement on the basis that it would be beneficial for Europe. And I worked on basically every free trade agreement that Europe has concluded since the mid-90s. And I want to be also very, very clear that I'm not the reincarnation of Satan, that I believe in income equality. And I'm also very curious about the leaked text you talked about on TTIP, because I can tell you now that TTIP negotiations aren't going great. We asked for it, a lot of clusterfuck literally happened, and we are actually not talking. And this is because we have negotiated FTAs with countries that are significantly smaller than us. South Korea was mentioned, and Singapore was mentioned. You know, these are, you know, countries with 1/10 of our size. We dictated the conditions, and we got an agreement. Actually, it didn't work that very well, because we are the biggest economy in the world. In order to have a free trade agreement that will give us such benefits in exports that we would actually create tangible growth through export alone, you need to find a civilization on another planet. This is the main role. And the closest thing we have is the United States. And which is, to quote Oscar Wilde, you know, we have everything in common except for language, but sometimes it feels like they're from a different planet. May I go on for 1 more minute? Okay. And there is no text. You haven't seen a text because there isn't a text. I assure you that. And simply, I don't think this agreement will be concluded in the coming 1 or 2 years. It will take longer time than that because we are simply not used to giving up. And the main benefit of free trade agreements is actually not in exports. It's actually an import, because it forces, increases the competition at home, which actually makes firm more competitive. So if you have a more flexible and actually a more dynamic market, you earn more money. One of the countries, actually several of the countries who realize this are actually have been governed by socialists for many, many years. They realized that actually in order to have income equality, you need to have growth to distribute. And some of the most prominent free trade countries in the world are actually have been governed by socialist governments for a long time. And one of them is Sweden, by the way. I did a little bit of a nation branding there, I apologize. But in short, we are currently facing not only competition on the market from business, between different businesses, but the rest of the world is actually doing free trade agreements without us. One of them is called Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is centered around the United States, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, and a few more. Basically, they try to form an agreement which they hope that China will sign, so that China will heighten the consumer protection and social welfare system, and also open up their market so that we can access it on the same fair grounds that Chinese firms can access us. Right. And this agreement will cut off 0.5% of European GDP. You think 0.5%, you can't relate to it unless you're an economist. But if I say that this is doubling the euro crisis, then you probably can understand what I'm talking about. So they will do this, even we say, that's not fair. We're not at the table. Everyone will do this. Japan is negotiating now with China and Korea in a trilateral agreement. There's also an agreement called RCEP. There's also NAFTA. I can go on and on and on and on. I've gone on for more than 1 minute. So you can either join the train, or you can just solve and realize that you want to keep your own standard. And I'm gonna share one secret with you. We haven't changed one single standard through a free trade agreement anytime in, as far as I know, as far as I worked, and I've read every free trade agreement we signed, we haven't changed one single line of legislation because of the free trade agreement. And we have done one with the rest of the world called the creation of the World Trade Organization, which China joined in 2001. And every social standard, every environmental standard, every consumer standard, and salaries increased following that in China. So I have a lot of evidence. You haven't even read the agreement, and I doubt that what you read is actually real. So I put the burden of innocence back on you. Find out what you're looking at, and then come back to me, and we'll have a discussion.
What I'm going to say.
Who is interested in TTIP? Come to me next week, and I shall show you papers. Yeah, and for you, because you are young, in Romania we are saying like this: theory is okay. The real life is killing you. So to speak about theory is very easy. Take care with the real life. Yeah. Take care with the real life.
And that's all we have time for. If you do have more questions, comments, you can go online to debating.eu and you can add some there. We have topics about TTIP and Brexit and so on. And we take those comments to policymakers so we can continue the discussion. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you to our panel as well. A round of applause.